2, this means it's a goal not met, this is a goal met, so that's why that's a 1, it's a 2. Research, we don't use that one anymore, but missing, that one hardly ever comes up. And then you go into all these, document, lab, test. I don't know who put, I guess Kathy probably put those together forever ago, what that order was, but we've just stuck with it. So you kind of have your labs and documentation at the top and referrals at the bottom.
Go back to protocol stage. So, yeah, so it's also possible for like this step right here, if it's true, throw that recommendation out,
And
but also keep going. So you, just because it has something in here doesn't mean it's the end of the step.
Yeah, just as
You can throw things off along the way, to, especially for G-Pro.
Where do we keep those recommendation text, like RS79?
that's in here.
Okay, okay.
And I had filtered it
But
by
I thought that
tobacco,
was,
but
I thought
yeah.
this is recommendation table, isn't it?
Right, it's your cross-reference table. So go back to protocol subscription. So she's looking for RS79.
Exactly.
So you can just copy that. That is not. And this is what they'll get.
So again, you only write RS79 once, it's only in here once, but if you look back at the other one, she's using RS79 a couple times at least.
So the name of the table on that, is that recommendation table?
It's recommendation
Okay, I
table.
thought recommendation table is the one that is
That's
created every time.
recommendations.
Recommendations.
Yeah, there's
With an
no
S.
Tor got very lazy. There's a
Oh.
recommendation table.
Oh.
And
There's a
I have a
recommendation,
review on that
Okay.
one in here.
recommendation table, and recommendation table override.
Yeah.
Oh, recommendation.
And recommendations
That's what I'll-
is not in here, but it would normally be right in here.
That's what we always have to say, the recommendation table.
Table.
Okay. And what was the third one? One is recommendations, which has all of the codes and.
It has all the output, let's say.
Yeah.
What's this override?
No idea.
I didn't see anything
No
in
clue.
one of them that, no, not that override, but another one I didn't see. But there is.
Override, if I had to theorize, it's because we wanted to standardize all the recommendation table, but for a certain client, they want it to mean
Yeah, that's
something
probably what
else.
that does, yep.
You put in the override table.
That one was smart to use, always use.
So, does that make sense? The RS79, that's what links back to the
It
other
goes to
one.
the recommendations table.
No S.
No
Let me
S.
read it right there.
Yeah, it goes to recommendation table.
The tab, OS.
Okay.
Come on.
I thought the recommendation table is the one that creates, that is made, okay, I'll take a look at it.
Well, that's recommendations.
Z. S.
Like this one right here.
That's it.
Let's see if it's connected to anything. Come on.
Okay.
So, seen by someone. What is this?
That was a good number.
That was the NQF. Oh, that was probably the last thing we ran through here. So this will tell you like all the information about
That's the protocol that was run.
what was the step that where it threw off said thing. This is a huge table. They got a missing, like true, false, missing, they got a missing. Here was the recommendation they threw out.
So this is where we've pointed critics into, okay, return this column, return that column, return that column.
Or this is what we give to Ken Miller.
Right, same thing.
Yep.
Say, look for the protocol that's named this with the step number 5 with, and return the value from cause value field.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so you got what you need to rewrite this thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you guys talked about anything complicated yet?
Well, what do you mean by complicated?
Like the protocols that,
Not any specific protocols.
where we have to do the time frames and
No.
this occurs at every instance versus this occurs every 6 weeks versus,
No, that's a good point. So things that we cannot currently do as a protocol engineer.
yes.
Either, we don't know if it's due to architecture or due to lack of experience writing field sources. That's, well, even Javier had to do it last year. Remember, we need field sources that say, the patient was diagnosed with X on June 1st. They had to be on this drug within 30 days of that. So, and we don't, or I guess in other words, medication reconciliation. Every time the patient comes in, they had to click the button for medication reconciliation. They came in 10 times. The current field source said 10 or 0. What we had to report is 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 5 out of 10.
Correct.
So that's where field sources, presumably that would be done in field source, or when Alejandro works at rewriting it, that's the kind of complexity that's out there. It's not just give me the patient's last one of this. It's if this, then did something else happen in that time frame, or did something happen every time the patient came in? That's where a lot of our challenges were last season. And is that going to be coming up with like just point of care protocols?
I mean, I wouldn't exclude it, right? Like, right now, besides the Med Rec one, right, most of them are pretty straightforward, but it's the PQRS ones, but then there's HEDIS ones, and as we're moving into, you know, other quality initiatives, I say we have to, and the specialty, we're gonna have to accommodate that space where the patient has this diagnosis and then they have to be on this drug 30 days before having this lab test done, or for, the patient has to have X, Y, and Z, and then every 8 weeks with 30 days in between the 8-week period, they have to come back for radiation or they have to come back for X.
Will that be for every patient or just Medicare managed patients?
No.
Who's sending down
It
those?
could be Medicare, or it could be for all patients that have a certain diagnosis, right? If they have a certain cancer, they have a certain...
But who's sending down those demands? Who's demanding that the practice do what we're trying to do? Who
Well,
sets the rules?
it could, federal government. These are measures, these are quality measures, right?
So generally CMS?
Yes.
But I thought CMS only cared about Medicare patients.
No. Because CMS, which is owned by the federal government, also includes AHRQ, which is a quality engine, has Medicaid and Medicare, and then they have their alliance with the National Quality Forum, and then they have their alliance with NCQA for different quality programs, right? So,
Okay. So I'm a physician. Why do I need to obey them?
well, you're not going to get paid.
That's okay. So they're basically setting the standard for payments.
Yeah. Well, and so today, it's you have to report these quality initiatives or we're going to cut you 4%
On your Medicare.
on your Medicare or on your Medicaid or or we're not going to certify you or whatever, right? But by the start, I believe it's the start of 18, 90% of everybody that gets some kind of Medicare or Medicaid is going to be in a value-based purchasing. So all the other payers are going to follow that. And so if you don't report, you're not even going to be getting reimbursed at all. Take away the whole cut of 4% or 6% or whatever.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's for the M guys, Medicare, Medicaid.
Correct.
Well,
population.
but even, okay, so
If
let's
I
talk about
go-
them going at risk with Humana, HMO, and PPO. They have their own HEDIS measures.
Right.
That they're,
Who has them?
the ACO and.
Medicare Advantage, so Humana, United, Aetna, but they're going to follow what the
But that's
government
again
does.
Medicare.
But that's Medicare. Like
Medicare,
I go to some doctor.
Yeah,
so
you're
I
not,
have
you don't
insurance.
have those benefits.
Correct.
So
I'm
what do you-
going there.
what is to make the physician apply anything to him? What is the incentive? You're a
Well,
doctor. What do
they're
you
going to
want?
have to go at risk, because the payers are going to, the Aetna of the world and Blue Cross of the world is going to do the same thing. They're already doing it now. If you already look up your doctor, if you go to Blue Cross Blue Shield, they have rankings of quality doctors. If I am a diabetic and I go to see this doctor over here versus this guy that's 2 miles past this guy over here, the diabetics supposedly they get treated at this practice do better based on these quality, because they all do quality.
So, okay, so we have Medicare, Medicaid, CMS, so like, we have that
Put
population.
them over, yeah.
Okay, now we're over, I'm a Blue Cross Blue Shield
Mhm.
insurer, he's my
Mhm.
patient. So when Dr. Tristan says, ICD-9 code or whatever, 798, I'm only gonna be paying 50 cents on that, or whatever the number is. So, you need to make sure that you are watching this guy, to make sure you don't give him something else that, you know, that's gonna cost you $10, you're only getting 50 cents. So the insurance company, I guess my question is the insurance company, are the insurance companies sending out rules for us
Yeah.
to
To
deploy?
us,
Uh-huh.
To us,
not to.
not through CMS, all the Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Not to
sending rules.
us as our company, but to the doctors there.
Okay, so how do we
Yeah.
get those rules that we want to put into this protocol engine?
Well, they're all by the quality metrics, and they all use the same metrics. They all use PQRS, they all use HEDIS, they
Okay.
all use AHRQ.
So the insurance companies are mirroring what the
Yes.
Fed said.
Yep.
Okay.
With like the tiniest little tweaks.
Yes.
To make it annoying.
Yeah, they're gonna change
Yeah.
the denominator. Oh, you only have to have 2 visits, or 1 visit, and CMS says you have to have 2. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm just trying to
But-
see, as we rewrite this thing, if we just assume CMS covers virtually all the patients.
Yes.
Is that a fair assumption?
If we look at PQRS measures, AHRQ measures, and HEDIS measures, we're gonna be fine. We're gonna have to tweak them.
It's a lot of measures.
It is.
Okay.
But then, there's Medicaid too, like, which is the CHIP and all
Right,
that.
yeah.
That's a standard under Medicaid, right, which is different for
Yeah,
that population.
yeah.
But they all are around the same,
Well,
if
see, I'm
you
trying
write
to-
it for one group, the functionality of how the protocol engine has to work will be suffice
Yeah.
across the different quality reporting.
Frankly, when you start with the mammogram protocol, you have a new one for HEDIS, well, let's pull the Medicare one.
Yeah.
Start as our template.
Yes.
And then tweak what we need to tweak.
Yeah.
Don't start from scratch on each one.
Right.
Yes.
That would be crazy.
Right, and that's what we do now, you know, for the most part. We know that the PQRS one looks from 50 to 52 as one entity, and then 52 to 69. The traditional HEDIS, what does they look? They look just
Well, just
54
like
or
right there,
52?
50 to 75, but this says 50 to 52 and 50
Yeah.
to 75.
And then some use 40 to 69, some use 52 to 74. But they're tweaks, but the concept's still the same as far as the look back period and what you have to be able to do.
But the scenario that we had last year, that I think that either we have to continue with the scenario that we had that with outside the protocol engine.
That was a medication reconciliation.
Yeah, but that's the one. Or we need to kind of fold that into protocol engine.
Well, I mean, ultimately,
We need to
the
bring that
new
in.
or the next or the update to the protocol engine would handle it. That we wouldn't have to run all these outside queries and all that. Everything would be handled within the protocol engine.
Can you please go to the recommendations table? Sorry.
No, so did you reset my thing?
This one or the table called recommendations?
Recommendations. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Basically, what I understand, recommendation weighted as
You're in the other, a different
Well,
one.
that's the C. Is it this one?
oh, you got it in a separate access file?
Yeah.
Well,
that
that's
should
so-
be.
Right, and Alejandro, what we do, so recommendations, what we do for point of care right now is that recommendations table is within the CDR aggregate. The recommendations table can be in any database, it just has to be told where it is in the UI settings.ini file.
So which one do you want? Do you want it in aggregate or do you want it in the PE, Alejandro? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter really.
Okay, so, go ahead.
Oh, no, my question was regarding what Rachel was just talking about in terms of whenever the decision about putting the recommendations into, in this case, is the recommendations table, may or may not be among the other tables. I mean, since this is the output, probably it's makes better sense to have it outside. And depending on the protocol that we define and groups and purposes, we can just use it as a repository for the output. And these records can be consulted by not only the protocol engine, report engine, I mean the actual application that creates the PDF report, but by any other application that may use the information for this. One case is the web reports, but in the future we might have other clients for that information.
So is there a question in there?
I think that you need to rephrase your question or your comment.
No, I
Was
got
the
the
question-
comment, I mean,
was it-
putting it outside of, putting it in an agnostic database allows other programs or resources
Sure.
to hit it and use it.
We still can
Totally
use
agreed.
it. Yeah, we can still.
But did you have a question in there, Alejandro, or were you just making a statement?
Oh no, it was just a statement. Just
Okay.
Oh, okay.
to make clear we are on the same page.
Yeah, we use it in research a lot to see how many times a provider has been alerted of a patient's, a specific outcome.
Right, and like we talked about earlier, a new request from Triad is to query that table and say how many of these recommendations does this location have, or how many do we have across the network, so we can get a sense for how are we
How
doing.
we
You
doing.
keep telling them to give a mammogram, but they never give mammograms.
Right. Now, going back to upgrade to protocol engine, Alejandro, did you understand the situation that right now our field sources kind of spit out a certain number of fields right now? And based on those fields, we kind of go to the decision tree. I guess that going forward for 2015, we need to perhaps somewhat change something within the protocol engine to kind of be more complicated on the select statement within the field source. Is that?
Yeah, I think we can review the logic behind that. I mean, probably using better tower resources.
Okay, but, okay.
Yeah, something to review. Okay.
Yeah, that's something, I mean, I think that Javier has a pretty good idea of what needed to be done.
Yeah, we have the scripts out
Yeah,
there.
scripts are there, but it's just a matter of how does it actually get into field source, one field, unified field source that basically spits out those I/O things that we can actually read off of.
If you're using the same application, yeah.
If you're using the same application, probably not.
Well, and that's the other thing that we talked about before, the wish list is, well, actually a drawback now is how long it takes to run a single patient through the protocol engine.
Correct.
And so that's a limiting factor right now, is that it takes us for Parkland, for 30,000 patients or something, it takes us 3 days to run through nonstop. It takes us 72 to 84 hours.
Correct.
If we're looking at a patient population of 120,000, it'd take us half the month to run that through.
Correct.
Just have to turn around and run it through again, and it's,
Correct. One fast way of doing it, go ahead, Alan.
Oh, no, that wish list, can you please send us an email with that? And it would be very helpful just to
Yeah, the
make sure
first
we
thing
all
that I
mind.
was thinking, now that I saw that it creates all right. Nothing. One thing that I was thinking, now that we have the protocol engine, the select statement for the union, perhaps we can run that and actually tune those things and put indexes and all these things that we need to do.
yeah, I'd be curious to see how much overhead is in the .NET 2.0 application though, because running that query to build a subset takes seconds or milliseconds.
Okay.
It's all the logic to do all the calculations. You have your subset data, great. Well, now you have to go through every step of every protocol and do your calculations. That's where I'd be more curious to see how much overhead is in that we can get away from. Because again, we're using .NET 2.0,
Right.
we're using technology from 10 years ago.
Correct.
Is it possible that...
Actually, there are many areas of improvement in the code itself. It's not really related to the version of the .NET framework, but we can optimize many things inside the code.
Great.
On today's, on the old .NET.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, did you talk about
I think we can get it down for about 3.5 seconds to about 1 second per patient.
I mean, that'd be beautiful if we could do that.
Did you talk about the on-demand?
No, from the moment until you walked in, we were going on a dummies guide to how do you write a protocol, what are each step of the protocol, getting everybody educated on how to
Deconstruct the protocol into for
Yeah.
Alejandro.
So we haven't gotten into any
Enhancements or next steps.
until just recently.
So,
And frankly, I mean, where you're gonna go, she went an on-demand report. Once we get the code from Pradex, I think we should be able to do that, let's say today. In order for it to have a widget, you and Alejandro have looked at this before, you can pass command line parameters to the protocol engine
Yes.
and it'll run through a patient.
Yes, we can do that.
So,
Because
but I think that means that's more on, we need the code from Pradex to be able to tie it to, maybe we don't need it, but push a button, they say refresh this patient's protocols. It'll take 5 seconds, but it sends a command to our server, runs it through, shoots those results back to the recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can potentially, I think we had that conversation. Now, what I was thinking is basically we're gonna work based on basic master key, correct? So they basically click a button.
They know, it would be on that patient information page where they know the master key is in the URL.
So they basically give us a key. We bring it over through the web services and basically your web application. We grab that key, we run it, get the result, and they have a web services over at.
Well,
actually,
we would need to push it into ATHN.
Yeah, we basically the decision was that we're gonna move basically everything stays at aggregate. Everything stays at aggregate, so it runs into in the recommendation in the aggregate, correct? And we send them a message that they need to basically refresh the data.
Right, but the missing step is it's going to run an aggregate on the local server, but then we need to push it to
ATHN, correct? Yeah. What that we can do.
Okay, and I don't think
Yeah.
okay, I'm with you.
So
then
I think we thought that
the message we send is that it just refreshes the page, or
yeah,
tell them.
we thought about it. I think that at one time we sat down. So basically, Alejandro, I don't know if I think that I talked to you, I don't know. But the bottom line is that, so they're basically, our objective, or the thing that we're gonna have, we make sure that the recommendation stays at ATHN.
Right,
Okay.
Yeah.
But really ATHN is a copy of it. So basically, what we basically do is that we run it in our THN server. That's where the aggregate is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We have a web services at THN and probably web services at ATHN that communicate with each other. It says, okay, I have a line of recommendation. I click, I put it there, we move it across, we do it all the time. And then at that point, somehow the application needs to know that it needs to refresh it, something like that.
No, that makes sense.
so
It shouldn't be that, I mean, definitely there are processes that need to happen, but yeah.
So just so everybody understands why this has to be done, is that a part of a practice's responsibility if you're in the ACO is that you have to take walk-in clients and you have to take expanded services in order for you to be a successful practice within the ACO. It's a contracted obligation through CMS as well as THN, okay? And if you're going to become PCMA certified as a medical home, you have to take walk-ins. So we have clients today that are up on Optimize that are taking walk-ins as a part of their responsibility contractually. And so every time a patient, they could have 15, 20, 30 walk-ins a day. They can't get a point of care report on them because they can't search for that patient and then generate a report on demand.
But at the end of the day, isn't our...
Wait a minute, we're not going to be able to do that the way things stand because we do not have updated data at the time. unless we modify this to run against
No, we just
the
talked
current.
about-
But the one thing though, but she said something about that appointment is not there. Doesn't
there
protocol
won't be an
engine
appointment.
work with appointment?
No, you pass a patient, you can pass a patient. It's how, when we were integrated into all scripts.
Okay, so we
they-
don't need to have an appointment to run, okay.
What it probably won't, it will not show up in patient center with the appointments for the day. But if you went to that patient information page,
Okay.
kind of see your stuff.
I mean, it's a big
Which is fine.
limit.
I think if you're talking about true walk-in, you don't need to go. to
You're
look
just
at the
talking about
schedule.
searching for them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're fine with that, but they have to have the ability.
Well, hold on a second. When you're searching for them in Optimize, you've got to make sure that you're pointing at the local database, because
We would be.
how do you know?
Well, that's what we just went through, is that when you're searching through Optimize, so Optimize is a daily replicated copy from A to B, and then Optimize is hitting B. Every night after
It's
aggregation.
yes, so it's pointing at the aggregated database.
So that's what they're looking at, which is gonna
Today.
be,
Right.
right,
So
so.
if somebody walks in,
Mhm.
they will not get current information unless yesterday's aggregate is satisfactory for what they're presenting as that patient's record today.
Right, but that's for everything that we just went, everything's gonna be based off yesterday's information.
Right.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not getting.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So I'm saying, so you run, let's say in this, we'll get to the on demand, if you run it, it's not gonna show up in, sorry, it's not gonna show in patient center with an appointment because.
There is
no appointment.
There is not an appointment.
And they're fine with that, but if a patient comes in, they need to be able to search the patient and patient
And if
search.
that patient has been there before, anywhere in Triad, they'll show up.
That's fine.
Okay?
So right here.
Maybe not that practice though.
Exactly.
That's fine.
They're in the
That's
aggregate
fine.
data set somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay?
We would communicate, if this is a brand new patient you've never seen before, this will not
Will
work.
not work.
Right,
Okay,
and-
that's what I was trying to get at.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think they're 100% fine with that. What the problem is that they've
So
got to take
here-
these walk-ins. So from here, they would, once they hit on the landing page, they would hit that print button or some kind of button. There would maybe be a new one that says generate point of care, whatever you want to call it. But they have to be able to hit it, and then a point of care populates with gaps in care and recommendations.
It's kind of what you're saying. Or
Yeah.
it's the
Why-
same place.
Yeah, why won't that work today?
It doesn't.
But what do you mean, what is that now? The whole process is based on batch job. The whole thing is batch. This is the
No, I think.
transaction.
Well,
Yeah.
we think, we just talked about, he thinks he has a process outlined of what Pradex would have to shoot to us, what we'd have to send back, what we have to do on our end. So Pradex would have to, they're on this page, well, this is the master key. It's in the URL,
Yeah.
262 dash.
Yeah.
So they click a button, they would have to pass the master key to us via web service or something.
Yeah.
We can batch file or command line to our protocol engine
At THM.
Correct.
So it,
on aggregate. It runs the protocol, it dumps in the recommendations table, we take those recommendations, push them into ATHN,
Yeah.
and then tell them,
and then send them a message, hey, refresh.
refresh this
or do something.
page. All of a sudden, they refresh it, and then these are.
It's a lot of, yeah.
These are
That's pretty ugly.
Well, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
well, think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, yeah, I mean, it is.
Right, that's just, with the technology we have, well, not the technology, that, the main thing is that functionality is built into the protocol engine, and you and I think Alejandro have looked at it and figured out what to pass.
So Alejandro,
Yeah, I'm here.
okay. So basically, if we run without having any appointment, if I give you a master key, I think that I believe you and Moses ran a situation that you gave it a master key and a point of care was created. Yes, I remember that some time ago. As part
Yeah,
of
we
the
can do it through
QA.
the command line.
As part of the QA,
It was a while back. Yes.
while back,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, we did it through command line.
Through the command line, and it created a point of care.
I believe that.
So it does create the point of care.
Of course, but what you're trying to worry about is putting it back on
Yeah,
this
and it
viewer.
put the
Well,
information
then,
back
this is
and forth.
sitting,
It's a
this is
viewer
sitting as
ratio.
aggregate, yeah,
Yeah,
it is
the
a
viewer
different
ratio.
server, everything, and
That's
they
why I
are
said,
both
why
on the
can't you do
website.
that? I got it. There's a disconnect between the Amazon Pradex viewer and what we can actually output as a request from the command line. I got it. Yeah, we can think about this some more.
I think what our main shortcoming with why don't we just write it on the Amazon, whatever, wherever ATHN is because that gets overwritten every day. So then if we run recommendations for patient here, then tomorrow it gets overwritten. So you can also look at, and that also includes.
Well, actually, that is going to be overwritten, for previous days not going to be overwritten.
Correct.
But next day, this guy never had an appointment.
Right, so it's over.
So
It's gone.
it is, no, it's gonna be there. The recommendation for the previous day is there.
No, right, I'm saying, you missed the part where we're saying running it on ATHN, not
No,
running it on.
ATHN is gonna be released.
But then even on ATHN, that means you're installing the protocols and the engine and everything else, and there's.
Yeah. But no, this is the cart in front of the horse, so we need to get, we're trying to figure out how to make sure that Alejandro knows enough to rewrite or find out a way to make this perform much better, because we have so much more volume to pass through this in so much less time.
Yes.
Right.
But I'm just saying that that's a big piece, because what's basically, just to be real transparent, what has happened is there's been about one or two of the new practices up on Optimize that have figured out that that doesn't work. So when they go in to search for a patient, they haven't figured out that they can't generate an on-demand report for them,
Well, I
right?
mean, but yes, that's true, but also I think that's a matter of that, is managing the expectations.
Arthur, that's not what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying for them, because of the way that they're set up contractually, it has to occur, or they're gonna start really complaining. They just haven't figured out they can't do it
A
yet.
missing piece is that they do have that functionality of the paper. So
Yes.
they have that functionality today where they can run an on-demand report, and it'll display it on their computer screen, they can print it out. Moving them to Optimize, they lose that functionality. So that's where they're, as Brandon said, they're realizing they don't have it is because they have had it, now they don't have it.
Yeah, because the viewer is pointed at a totally different location, instead of pointing at their local EMR from which
Well, no, even-
CDR, this local CDR is built, from which their report would be run. I mean, I see that, I mean, all the software's right there in their little jurisdiction.
Right, but we've also.
But when we give them.
Moses worked with them and puts the protocol engine, the little red icon, puts this on their front desk computer when they open it up.
They can search for the patient.
They go in here and they type, start looking for a patient's name. So
Yeah.
they're doing manually what we're kind of proposing, that you push a button and it does it in the background.
So you've given them a little front end to the old printed report technique.
Protocol engines use
I got you.
old, new, current, I mean,
I
that's.
got you.
Okay.
It's like the old back in
Yeah,
the
I got it, yeah.
when we first.
Okay, other question? Okay.
So Arthur, what else do you need to know about this, when this passed? Rachel's going to go on vacation for the next year, so you better get everything.
Start over.
This is a question for Tristan and Rachel. The optimized report that we just saw previously, what does it take that information? Is that from the recommendations table? I mean, the same recommendations table that it...
Yes, we run through the protocols. In the CNS CDR aggregate, there is a recommendations table right here.
Yeah, but the web report, what we see on the web page, is it taken from there, or is there any
No.
intermediate
What we do,
database for that?
so we run it in the CNS CDR aggregate. Once it's done running for the day, programmatically, Eric maybe set it up where this database backs up and restores on a different server. And that's what the web application is hitting. It's hitting a static copy or hitting a copy of CNS CDR aggregate on a different server.
So to answer your question, it's the same recommendations table. It's just we copy the whole database to another server that.
Yeah, but it's not the same, I mean, it's like a mirror, but it's not the online data.
What do you mean?
It requires an external persist. Yeah, what I mean is, it's not the very same bits, because the nightly process copies it to another table or
No, 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 no,
database.
no, the whole
That's the
database.
source.
The whole database, the CNA CDR aggregate gets copied to another server. It's exact same table, exact same data, every night.
Right, but by doing that, we don't have the live data, right? In terms of if there is any new activity, say a new visit, it won't be immediately reflected.
Well, I mean, none of our things are real anyway. We do the import, we first do the import, then we do the aggregation, then we run the protocol engine. And at that time, recommendation table is static till next night. So, you know what I'm saying? So the recommendation stays static for 24 hours. Now, what I think that Brandy is saying is that they want the capability to actually run the protocol engine for one patient, for instance, that would actually run and create that record of recommendation, and then we write web application and web services to take that record and put it into that server that the KPN
Yeah, that's the
optimizes.
purpose of my question, because if we implement this refresh button, what we have right now is we can just trigger the report creation by using the command line that we know it works for a specific patient, but it will load the local version, and we still have to do the copy of the database so that it can be reflected in the web page.
Right,
So like a second.
we would need an extra step
That's right.
to move the records.
Well, I mean, one thing that I just thought, and maybe I'm just totally, just something came to my mind, I think that Alejandro maybe suggested something. Our .ini decides where the recommendation table is, correct?
Yeah.
Just the recommendation table is. Is there any way that we can run the protocol engine at the aggregate but puts the recommendation in the ATHN?
It's possible, we have to test it, I mean,
Yeah,
that's.
that's probably a good idea. Yeah, we probably need to test it though, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Did you hear Alejandro? I don't know if you suggested that or not. You know, now we have that .ini ini for the protocol engine. Maybe we can tweak the protocol engine to maybe with a new token that it says, oh, don't use the recommendation table that's attached to the protocol engine. When I have this type of message coming, put it in the recommendation in another recommendation table in another database that we actually can have link server and all that, correct? Between the two.
Yeah, but again.
Yeah, it can be done. It will require changing the code, but yes, it can be done.
That's what I'm thinking, if we have the link server.
Not disputing the one thing that'll change, you can't do a full database backup and restore because it's gonna overwrite anything that was run manually.
Well, it is correct, but the only thing that we missed, you're right. We can potentially actually run it on one end. The only thing that I'm trying to avoid here is always moving parts of web services and all that. That's the only thing that I'm trying. We can potentially run it here and run it there, correct? Based on this connotation. So it puts the same thing, it's the same data, correct? So it just puts it here, puts it there, and tomorrow night, of course, we superimpose it and everything is fine. I don't know if it's possible and all that, but if I have total transparency between the ATHN and just like they're sitting on the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, when we run, if it misses the next day reports, for instance, and I run it, then there's a script that can copy to both.
Yeah, but he's trying to get away from that. He's saying, if he misses it, if we have to move one from one to the other, it's an insert into overlay server.
Oh, okay.
But
we're trying to avoid that.
Oh, okay.
The only question for you then, or what you were saying, is that Alejandro had to look at it. So right here is the UI settings INI file.
Exactly.
It's hard coded in there, CDR aggregate is where you want to save the recommendations.
Right.
And you need to look at it in your scenario saying.
I'm saying
run it,
adding
save it-
another one.
I know, but save it into one and then save it into a second one.
Correct.
That's what you have to look at is, can you do that with the same UI settings, or does that have to kick off two different applications at one point?
Yes. That way we don't have to write web services and all that.
Oh, that'd be
That's
great
gonna
if you
take
did,
us
yeah.
a lot of time.
The other thing that we have to think about too, so there's multiple reasons why doing, so let me explain the other two reasons just to make sure that the functionality is going to support that. So the first one is the patient comes in as a walk-in, which is a requirement. We produce an on-demand report. The second one is that they use our point-of-care reports for PCMH certification, for United and Medicare quality audits, for different things like that that are directly related to reimbursement. So if a patient comes in and it's a patient that they're tracking, they have an appointment on Monday, they see the provider does 7 or 8 different things, they want to be able to produce a report on that patient 2 or 3 days later after aggregation has completed to see how many gaps were closed at that visit. Because that's directly related to reimbursement, quality, and performance as they're monitoring practices that are in the sites, as they're getting ready for different audits, and as they're supporting data to these different payer groups, okay? That's another reason. The third is what Tristan already brought up, is that one of the dashboards that's on the table to be constructed is a dashboard that says Eagle Family today has 740 gaps as a total as that organization, and by practice they have 47 mammogram gaps, 23 colonoscopy gaps, 47 diabetics that don't have an A1C under control, and they've got 50 some gaps for patients that should be on an ACE-ARB. So them being able to track their gaps and then put care management programs and then into care coordinators in place to close them are a way that they can structure budget and those things around who's going to monitor the gaps, how are they going to close them, what care management programs are they going to put in place to reduce costs, and then that's how they're going to track performance on care coordinators. You have 74 patients. You're in charge of closing as many gaps as you possibly can. So there's multiple reasons why. So we want to make sure the functionality can support all those initiatives.
Well, I think that
And Rick, that all relates to actually having the ability to create the reports by using the most up-to-date information. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
Right, but that's a good point, that patient comes in, they have their gaps in care before they saw you today. Well, what happens tomorrow when you closed half of those gaps? They still have their old gaps in care in there. Is that, we just run them, do we run every day for the previous day as well? To refresh? I mean, I know, but they close these, and so for the next, until they see that patient again,
So
it's
they
still
have a
gonna
next
show that they
appointment.
have these gaps open.
Yeah, and if they search the patient, it could be 6 months old. If they log in and search for a patient and look at their gaps, they're 6 months old.
I totally understand, but also we have the situation with time, regardless of how we do it.
No, we're just showing, we're throwing problems out there, we're not throwing solutions.
Yeah, so
We're
that
throwing
is,
real problems
yeah.
that if we're going to have a product in this space, we know that these have to be addressed. We're not saying they have to be fixed tomorrow, but we're throwing real problems out there that we hear when we're on site that we know have to be taken care of.
Correct. So basically, we need to be able to run protocol engine regardless of based on some type of patient source.
Yeah, and
Right? It should be based.
The quick way or the easy way, what we can do with it, with today's build, is either every day run, maybe it's over the weekends, I don't know, but you can run historical reports. So you can say, everybody that had an appointment 5 days ago, give me a brand new point of care report with the new data. It doesn't look for data as of 5 days ago, it looks for data as of today, but they had, it's again, that patient source. See?
But what if we just create a patient source on fly, based on our...
Patient sources we have, so everybody has a scheduled appointment. Anybody's an add-on, so, well, forget about it. So right here, once this populates, you're gonna see an appointment date of probably 3 days in the past and 4 days in the future. And again, it's all driven by the patient source, so maybe where you're going to create a new patient source says, just give me anybody who had an appointment the past week.
No, I was actually thinking that if the protocol engine runs based on the master key, right, we have some sort of front end or something that they will choose the patient group patient source that they want,
They who?
they as THN or whoever,
No, I mean, I think,
or us, or
I
whoever.
think us, I think this is.
Okay, us.
My thing is, my thought is it's done in the background, where we're basically refreshing that patient's data a couple of days after their appointment, because things have changed since then.
It's a couple of days, what
But
if?
wait a second, why wouldn't, let's cut
Yeah.
back up. So Arthur comes in today unannounced,
Yeah.
but it's been a patient
Mhm.
at a different clinic from the one he shows
Sure.
up on, the worst case.
Okay.
So we figure out a way to produce a point of care report, which represents the most current reading we have on Arthur. Ever how we do that. So you look on there and there are some gaps in care that you, the physician, want to take care of that day, so you schedule some labs.
Okay.
Okay? Well, does not that physician or the physician aide enter into that local EMR, I've made these,
Yep.
right?
Uh-huh.
So that night, that stuff comes up, so
Uh-huh.
tomorrow, the report comes out and it's a refreshed status of this walk-in patient.
Right, and that's, well, exact same wavelength is that we don't run that report tomorrow. We only run that report the day before the appointment. We never
Based
turn
on
around and run it based off.
Oh, they don't?
They
No.
don't.
Oh, they don't.
So
No, we
when-
ju-
if-
everything is appointment centric here.
So if you log into that patient search and you search for them, this is where it looks odd, is because what will happen is, let's say that Lucinda came in,
She has an appointment today.
okay, and they go to her labs or something, Tristan. So let's just say that he said, I want you to get a new A1C,
Right.
I want you to do that,
Right,
right?
right.
So 2 days from today,
Right.
that they go in, the new A1C is gonna be there, but
Yeah.
if it's still a gap, when they hit the generate the report, the same exact gaps are gonna show. So even though the data in here is different because it went through the aggregation, when they hit click the report or go to this gaps in care segment, the same gaps are gonna show
Well, I
up.
don't see, I don't follow, that does not follow.
So it may still
You-
say
you
Because
guys
we
Rachel
have
needs
to
an
run the protocol
A1C.
engine for it. Because, okay, so data is in CDR.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so the
every
guy
night-
came, so the guy came and got the lab done, and now it's in EMR, we imported it in.
Right.
So it is in CDR.
Yeah.
If we run the protocol engine, right now for that patient, it's gonna show up, the lab is gonna show up. But we don't run the protocol engine for this guy till he shows up again for another appointment. You know what I'm saying? So say he got his A1C done,
I see.
but then they keep looking at it, okay, he's still not there, he's not there, because everything for us is till the guy shows up for the appointment. Well, if he shows up next week, of course, when he shows up and they pull the protocol engine and it says, yeah, the lab is done. But between when it's done till he shows up again, if they run if they look at his lab, it's not gonna be there. Now, I don't know if they actually proactively go look at the patients while the patients are not at office.
See, I don't think that's
See,
happening.
No,
Let's
you
use
guys
this-
you guys are missing the point here, so we need to give you a better example here. So I was actually looking up a patient. Are you looking up a patient?
That's all, I'm just tying and packing. But we can use this theoretical, it's not 100%, but, okay, so this patient came in on July 1st. So all the gaps in care were generated July 1st based on the data in the database.
Right.
You have this one recommendation here, it says fall risk screen must be documented in the prior 12 months. Well, here now it's showing there is a fall risk screen, and pretend that that's today's date.
Right.
So they did document during that visit.
Okay?
But again, I just ran the report with this patient, it's still saying to document a fall risk screen. They did it, but these are based off the data before the appointment. So maybe that's the other way. This is data before the appointment. This is data
Yeah,
as of
correct,
current,
correct.
as of today's status.
Correct.
So this stuff could change, but it's not gonna affect any of this unless the protocol engine is running.
Exactly, because he has to have an appointment.
Hold on.
Forget about has to have an
No,
appointment,
no,
we
what-
don't run it again, period.
Period. Right.
We don't run,
The protocol
Forget
ain't
about
gonna
the
run again
appointment.
until
Well,
they.
No, we do, no, wait a minute, we do.
they had not had an appointment since July 1st, you are correct, so the patient was not run.
Correct. But if he shows up, if he's gonna show up today, just for 2 days.
But he's not gonna show up today, that's the whole point, he walks in.
He,
Or
okay.
no, he didn't even walk in, they're trying to they asked KPN for a data pool, show me all my open gaps in care.
At that point, there is
I'm
not.
gonna show you this as an open gap in care, but guess what, it's not, because they've already addressed it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's where this is
Yeah.
leading, is the current state of.
So you're saying inside of the thing that Rachel's been showing us,
Mhm.
all the information in there, that doesn't get updated until we run a
Protocol.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
It's on
But the
demand, already.
outside of
I
this
got
stuff
you. I
does.
got you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
But the
understand.
outside does, so then if, and this happens, because we hear about it all the time, that a patient came in, they know they wanna
I
close
got
some
it.
gaps,
Oh, yeah, I understand.
then they log back in, they search for the
I
patient.
thought you were saying that none of the outside stuff got
No,
updated.
that
It's
all the
just
stuff
gaps.
does, but
Got it.
so it got updated, but then the gap is still reflecting it because that was run off the last,
Got it.
right?
Yep.
So then they're like, why is this doing this, doesn't make sense. So that's why we have to address that piece.
Got it.
So basically, then by clicking that button, it's gonna run the protocol engine and it's gonna update that middle section.
For on-demand, yes, for walk-in patients, but I guess the other side of that is,
For the
can
other
we
stuff.
automate it, so the doctor's doing good,
Yeah.
this would be for another product that they paid a bill,
Right.
but yes, let's give them credit for what they just did with their patients.
Well, I mean, I think that we can potentially put a system as a revenue generating system to basically.
Let's forget about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
We just need to solve the problem. Get it done. We understand this issue, right?
Yeah, we
Okay, let's move
understand
on.
the issue.
Okay.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification.
Thanks.
Okay. So basically, I think that the session started as discovery finding of the protocol engine, and now I think it has shifted to what the requirements are for future. So Alejandro, do you have any question, doubt, or anything that you need to ask?
Well, I think we have enough to keep working on this. And for specific questions that arise from the upcoming steps, I think we can send by email.
Okay, so basically, these are the things that I have written down. One is performance.
Yeah, I think basically, we're going.
Yeah, one is performance tuning of the protocol engine as we know it. Tristan's view is that the overhead is at the level of the protocol engine. No, I mean.
Right, I have no view, that was my
yeah,
assumption, but he knows
yeah.
about looking at it.
So basically, the performance tuning is that right now, based on the numbers that are here, it takes 3 seconds for each patient to run.
Take 3 to 5 to 8
Three to-
seconds, it depends.
3 to 5, what, for per patient, is that 3 seconds?
Let's call it 3 to 5 seconds. per
Okay,
patient.
3 to 5 seconds, and what we are going through is that we are going to, regardless of the patient population is going to increase drastically. And if we're having 150,000 patients, that's going to, we cannot run it for 3 to 5 days. Is that right?
That would be, 150,000 patients would be about 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks. We tried it for how many patients was it?
No, we run it for 35,000
For
patients.
35,000
Right now
was
it's
3 to 5,
days.
3 to 4 days. So 150,000, we talk about weeks. So that's one, is a performance issue. The other issue that we may have to deal with is what I call complicated field sources. The issue is not a matter of just.
We're not going to fix that right now because we're required to modify a lot of things and
Correct.
it will introduce more problems potentially. But we can work on specific protocols to see if they can be simplified or there is a lot of overhead in the design of the actual protocols. But it will be like a per case analysis.
I've got another issue then.
Okay, well,
Add yours.
well then we kind of, I think that the expert of the protocol steps are sitting in this room.
Well, something we didn't talk about in this session is not having to go to an access database to write a protocol. And that's, again, that's maybe down the line another product, but where, look, Rachel helps Brandy. Brandy's a clinician. Rachel knows how to code it in the database. An application or a user interface where maybe Brandy can write the protocol without Rachel's help. Rachel's gonna go out of town for a week or a month or however long she's going. Can't write a protocol.
And if she does, she decides she
Yeah, she goes
sees somebody in that island, and she decides the weather is good, the guy looks good, I'm not coming back.
She's already engaged, so she's
She's
coming
engaged.
back.
Yeah, but she's not
But
married.
engaged, come on, engaged, what does that mean? Nothing.
So, yes, all the scenarios, she gets hit by a bus, she doesn't come back. We need an easier way, an interface for someone to easily write a protocol where it's not go to this table and go to that table and let's look at that table and go back
Yes.
and forth and see what's over there.
There's a lot of places for error too.
Because I know all the steps, right? I just don't know what she's doing over there with the 1 and then the D47 and then that stuff over on the far right, right?
Yeah.
So if there was a user interface that was on the front end where I could say, I need to change the denominator to say that the patient's now not going to be 50 to 74, the patient's going to be 54 to 80, that I can do that easily without screwing something up, that it's less complicated.
Well, I think it's, yeah, I mean, that's high level.
Arthur, do you remember the requirement document that we worked on last week? That was one of the points. I mean, a tool to actually provide maintenance or create new protocols. It's really needed because it's a very manual process and potentially hazardous.
Correct. I think, but that's the statement, I think you and me had this conversation many times, how do we change the front end of the protocol engine?
Well, I think you have people in the room to.
Yeah, they have to, yeah, I mean.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, but basically, we need to start from somewhere. I mean, how do we want to do it? I mean, if you guys kind of flowchart it, kind of describe what.
So Rachel, your thoughts, I asked you this before, you thought maybe if it looked kind of like Visio, that would make a lot of sense, or if you had to theorize what a front end, or Brandy, you too, I mean, what would a front end look like that would be optimal to do this?
Something that just put like denominator, numerator, exception, exclusion, and gave me the ability to change requirements in the denominator.
It's a lot more complicated than that, I think, though. For you to make simple updates, yes, but to do these groups within groups, or we need a group that does this, and we want the last one of those, but we want to see what the count of this is at least 3. That's, I mean, the complexity, and maybe that's, again.
Maybe it is Visio then. I mean, some kind of view like that where it can be, you can put it into the flow, into a diagram,
So
and then
it goes here, if it does this, then it goes there, if it doesn't do that, then it goes here.
But the system on the back end is smart enough that if I put it in this flow here, if this happens, then you go to here. If this doesn't happen, you go to here. That it then on the back end codes it so that you don't have to do the true false and that kind of stuff. Maybe it's something like that.
That's where the challenge comes from, is how do you make user interface to back end programming.
Yeah, because I mean,
But you're asking the question, so you're getting the answers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, honestly, I think that, the user interface we have to understand exactly where do we start with? What do we start with? You talked about denominator, that's kind of at the end, but.
No, it's not.
That's one of the first steps. Denominator is what they're included in this measure and they're not included in this measure. So they're a female
They're
that's 50 years
diabetic.
old, that means they come in the mammogram. If they're a male that's 50 years old, they're not in the denominator because they're not part of the measure.
Okay,
The
but-
first step.
Correct, but the denominator is basically describing a group of patients.
Right, but you have to look at it it's a group of patients, but it doesn't come in the end, it comes at the very beginning. You don't run through and see if this patient's had a mammogram to figure out that's a numerator, and then you say the denominator, oh, they're a male, so I shouldn't even run all that for them. So the denominator in the protocol world comes first.
But the thing is, can you go back, actually,
Yeah, what do you see?
the one, oh,
Do you want to see?
can you give?
Protocol?
No, can you give access to Alejandro again?
Alejandro, can you share your screen?
Alejandro, can you share your screen?
Yeah.
And I know that is not it, but can you go back to that front end that you're starting to make? I mean, this just.
Yeah, but basically, while starting to work with the G-Pro and PQRS new approach protocols, Arthur mentioned that since these were protocols that were targeted for many patients treated as a group, the first approach was to actually create a tool to do that grouping of patients based on several aspects, gender, age group, and so forth, which may not be ultimately used for that, but it could be useful as a meaning to browse through the list of patients.
So basically, my approach or our approach was, that's the only approach that I know, because I don't understand. I myself don't know. I mean, I know a little bit more about it, but my approach was that I'm gonna build a population, and then I have to run certain amount of field sources or whatever that is, some type of steps and all that on this population. So I started just kind of saying, okay, I'm starting with a patient, and gender, age group, race, and all that. And then, of course, different tabs. We can put different tabs, so all of them are cumulative. Give me all of the patients who are male, this, that, and so forth. And then they have this type of insurance and all that, and clinical information. You know, they have A1C. But I don't know what all those things are. So, you know, somehow this is just a prototype. So I'm creating a group of people. Or I could have imported a group of people, say for G-Pro. I could have potentially done that too. And that would be the start of it, but then that's where we start. So where do we go from here? Now it needs to go to, we need to hook it up to some type of protocol, steps, protocol, you know. Now that I have my people, let's run these things against this population. And that's where we kind of stopped, because really it is a really a heavy duty application that is going to require multiple discipline of people to see how we can actually make it very user friendly, patient centric or group centric or something. But frankly, we cannot do it unless there is a heavy duty collaboration between the people that are running these things and IT. That's where we left it at. And we could save the list, perhaps, you know, run protocol engine and all that, hooks up to things and all that. These are all the possibilities, but, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we can potentially save all of the master keys, and we can put that master keys to the protocol engine. We can do that. I think that's very easy. That's very easy. We can do it right now. But that is not what we're talking about.
No, and to be honest, the patient group, patient source, is the easiest thing.
Easiest part of it. Correct. That's the easiest part that we could
hours
do.
trying to come up with a patient source. It's the wrong area to be
Correct.
focusing on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This was just a matter of like a few hours we created.
Yeah, you were flying blind.
Yeah, flying blind.
So
but
with
that's
the
not
last 3 hours that we spent, now do you see where it might need to shift gears or where?
Well, definitely I know that we need to shift gear, but what I'm saying is that how do we do it? That's the part that I'm not sure. I'm really honestly I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Neither are we. Then.
Yeah.
I mean,
so, you know.
So do you still have any questions about how the protocol engine works? How it flows through? Do you
I think
understand how
that
it flows
pretty
through?
much we understand how I think that other than that sophisticated one that was going up and down, I think that is pretty straightforward. That's not that difficult.
It's straightforward, but they can be, they're not all one-to-one. I mean, she shows you group 4 or 5 levels deep, but there are many that are at least 2 levels deep.
At least.
that a group looks at another group. Because from, like in her example, one of the groups says, give me the most recent one, and the group above that says, okay, how many of them were there? Right now, I guess, maybe it's lack of understanding how the protocol engine was built, or maybe it's lack of functionality within the protocol engine. You can't say, give me the last one and make sure there are two of them. It has to be two different pieces that say, so that's why it's group within a group is, yeah, that bottom group says, okay, give me all of them, give me a count of all of them. And then the second one says, okay, give me a count, or the last date of them, or something like that, you know, it's, so it is, I mean, once you wrap your head around it, yes, it's easy, you can follow it, but it's still just building it, and there's so many, again, so much room for error, it's complex in the fact that it's not just put it in one table, you have to put it in 6 or up to 6 tables that you're using for one protocol, for one step of one protocol. So maybe, I mean, so you asked about the user interface, yeah, that thought maybe something like Visio where you say, step one, I'm going to look and see what their gender is. If it's this, then I want to draw a little arrow or have a, whatever, interface that says move to this step. If it's not, either move to that next step or drop or end the protocol. I mean, and so maybe, and then it's all one page, so you're not going between 6 tables. You say, you can read through from top to bottom. So step 1, gender, female, it goes here. And then it's going to look at this. Well, this splits out to we're looking for these values or these CPT codes. Okay. Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, missing. Then it goes to the next one. I mean, it's maybe that's the easier, or the interim is just be an interface that can look at multiple tables so you can flow from top to bottom in graphical format.
And as it change logic, you just kind of see how the relationships is right now.
Pretty much, it is maybe just like a little relationship tree, but also the ability to write, to code it that way. I don't know, I mean, Alejandro, as he digs into it and plays with it and optimizes or the code.
Well, right, but you know, I think that he can also go to a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
he has to be, he has to be very specific on what needs to be.
What level of what do you need? Because everybody's in the room, everybody's here for this.
Alejandro,
or are we not there
okay,
yet?
okay, Alejandro, because that's the bottom line. I think that I don't have a clear understanding of how. Honestly, I don't understand quite what Visio stuff that we talk about, graphical user interface and all that.
You mean the actual logic behind the creation of the recommendation tables? I mean, the loading is in a separate file. It's a model, and the graphic user interface is just the front end. They are not really mixed up.
But right now, based on what the Access user interface is, it seems that it's very complicated. You have to click here, you have to go into 5 different places, and you make mistakes. I haven't really, maybe I'm not, I haven't done that many of them, but I have a hard time trying to conceptualize how we can change it that it would be kind of easy, top-down, click, click, click. I don't have it.
Are you referring to following through the flow for the actual protocol? I mean, the protocol steps, what are the default groups and types?
Yeah, I think it would be all subtables too, right? I mean, yes, following a protocol from A to Z, it starts with a protocol step, but then it's going to go to groups, it's going to go to inclusion criteria, it's going to go to field sources. This doesn't need to display the query of the field source. It might need to have a simple description of this field source looks for the patient's gender. This field source returns all the CPT codes from the encounter table. Or this field source returns all the ICD-9 codes from the problem table, or this other field source returns all the ICD-9 codes from the encounter detail table. or is it a union between both of them, whatever. Just some simple, so Rachel Brandy can say, okay, yes, the field source I need, I don't care what it's called, I just want it to do this. I want it to return all, I'm looking for CPT codes, and here are the CPT codes I'm looking for.
And then
Yeah, if you have a list of specific codes or information that you need, that is frequently queried, we can just have those separated from the rest and probably being called as a first level protocol steps.
I guess when y'all, when the request keeps coming, why don't you give us the most used things, or what you do here, what you do there. We're pulling data, we want any data element from the CDR is valid to be used in the protocol. Any CPT code, any ACD9 code, any CDR value is valid to be used. I don't think that this should be built based off what we currently needed to do, because it can need to do something else in the future, a protocol that we haven't even addressed, a data element that is for a CDR value we don't even have created yet. It's just but the structure needs to be able to pick any CDR value, any CPT code, any field source, I mean anything that's, well, any field source that's more than programming, but it just has to have that framework to allow the protocol writers to query data in the CDR database, whatever data is in there.
Okay, you mean like an index or documentation of what are the current codes to be used whenever we need to create a new protocol?
Well, I think that, so the new protocols, in my view, are not going to be done by programming because there's too much clinical interpretation that needs to happen. So, but for the person, clinical, whoever's writing the protocol, needs to be able to query any data within the CDR database.
So basically, I think if I'm understanding, okay, so I'm just thinking, okay, I'm a clinical guy, okay, I don't know the tables, right?
You have a good idea, but you know.
No, I don't.
Okay, right. You don't know tables, but you don't know CDR underscore, but you know problems, encounters, medications.
Correct. So you would say, I want to see all of the patients who are male, right? I mean, is that usually, don't we start usually at the patient level?
Yeah, it always starts at the patient, everything is at the patient.
Well, no, I mean, we talked about CDR values and, not CDR values, but yeah, CDR values and all, because that's where I'm trying to figure out, where do we start?
It always starts, everything's tied to the patient one way or another.
One way or other, but say we want to start writing from scratch.
Well, if we're going to do a hybrid of the current protocol engine with optimization, you start with the patient, either the specific patient that's passed to it by you pass the patient. You pass the patient in, you pass the provider in, you pass the clinic in. The provider and clinic are, forget about the clinic, the provider's done based off the appointment schedule. The patient's done just that patient. But even if you're done off the appointment schedule, the appointments have a list of patients. So the protocol engine is run on a patient-by-patient basis in a simplistic form. Right. So that's where you're starting. You start and end with the patient.
Correct. On running it, but setting up the protocol engine, setting it.
Well, it's still the same. When they write a protocol, they have one patient in mind. A patient that meets, I'm trying to write a protocol for a patient that meets this protocol and a patient that doesn't meet this protocol. Right. So what step, can you pass me, can I take it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to show you, this is what CMS provides that they can work off of for, I'm assuming you two say yes or no, but
They're reading.
they're working.
They're working.
It's always takes a while. So, for what I was saying, and I'll show a video here in a second, but Rachel and Brandon, they say, okay, we want to write a protocol, I keep going back to it just because it's easy to speak about, for breast cancer screening. So if I want to write a protocol for breast cancer screening, you're going to pass me any patient. First, I want to see if that patient's...
Christian, can you share that part?
I'm trying. It's taking a long time.
It's coming.
Oh, sorry.
It's trying to share it.
It's getting old.
It is easy to install.
We want to, no, you're not gonna get a new laptop.
Why?
I've only had 2 stolen, all right? My quota's 5.
Your quota.
You're due.
You are due.
I think it should have come with that.
I know I haven't said much, but can I add one point too, that if you're looking for, when you're making this, when you're rewriting the whole system from scratch, you kind of have to think about who's going to be accessing this data 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Is it going to be doctors or is it going to be patients? You know, is it going to be like me going up, getting on a computer or getting on my Fitbit, you know, and saying, oh, you know, getting the information about me, or having it downloaded from, you know, some doctor onto their, you know, to some sort of microchip that, you know, all doctors, that everybody has access to, you know, so it's like,
Well,
it's not just be clinicians, it's not just be doctors. You know?
correct, and you make a good point that Kristen and I have talked about 100 times, is that what would actually be optimal on this front-end viewer is that if, based upon what a client paid for, is they had accessibility to it. So if they wanted to rewrite their own measures, because a lot of practices will say, well, this is great, but I want to see if within the last year who's had a pneumococcal, not anybody over the age of 65 ever in their life. So then they could go in if they purchased it on this front end viewer, and they could make a change so that if they were an optimize and our dashboards were in there, they could see a performance rate based upon changing the protocol like this, based upon what's the standard in our library.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is an example of a Visio that's distributed with the G-Pro measures that you can download. It's not going to be all the way what we need, but okay, so right here, this is Prep 5, this is the mammogram protocol. Right here it says consecutively rank patients age 50 through 74 years at the beginning of the measurement period. What it's leaving out is female. That's something that's breast cancer. The clinician or the clinical team knows it's for that. So again, they would take this and infer, okay, they're going to pull 50 through 74 out, but they're also going to add, step 1, is it a female? Step 2, and this obviously changed, but are they 50 through 74 years? If yes, then they're qualified for the measure, keep going. If not, stop abstract, stop going through. So it's basically saying just that. If yes, if they're at least female 50 through 74, then move forward to the next step. If they're not female 50 to 74, stop. They're qualified. So they'll take this, okay, so now they have their patients. Did the patient have a mammogram screen for breast cancer within measurement period or within 27 months prior to measurement period? Whatever. So again, this is kind of what they take. They just take this kind of verbatim, and that's when they start writing, okay, for here, a mammogram screen for breast cancer. Okay, well, what are the CDR values that they need to look for? They're looking for PROC1 mammogram. Or even maybe the new system, it's just like when they're mapping. It doesn't say PROC1 mammogram, it says mammogram. It doesn't have the complex back-end name. It just says, I want drop-down, I want a mammogram. Do you want to assert within a certain 2 dates? Yes, today, back 27 months or years, or days, months, or years. And then just keep the yes or no. I mean, yes, they met it, then give them this recommendation. It's not going to be R23, it's going to be select from a list that you can filter by mammogram or breast cancer or whatever. I think it's, and just very simplistic, maybe kind of piggybacking on the way they use the mapper now, where it's just got a search box and all the available values and they can pick what they want. And this is just, talking about just throwing stuff out there.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean.
So maybe an interface to do something like that, where it is just a, did this happen, yes or no? If yes, go here, if no, go there. I mean, there's, see if I can find one, because not every time does it say no. So right here, okay, this is flu. Did they get a flu vaccine? Yes. bam, they're done. Okay, well, no, they didn't get a flu vaccine. Did they have a reason for a denominator exception? Again, they have to cross-reference another guide that says what's an acceptable exception. Okay, did they have an exception? No. Okay, and then, so it just really, not to go into all of it, but there's always, it's just a decision tree process, is all it is.
Yeah, decisions tree, but you need to know the data sources for all of these. Like for instance, right there, those exceptions, that is something that is
Again, and that's where I'm really throwing it. And
Yeah.
any CDR table needs to be fair game. Because they could put data into any CDR underscore table, any data that we export data from the EMR and put it into a CDR. Any data in those tables are fair game to be used in the protocol. So I know it'd be a lot easier saying, and I think I gave David a list of these are the ones we're currently using now, these are the tables we're hitting, these are the values we're hitting. But tomorrow that could change. If we get a new protocol that has a brand new value that more than likely is going to be in one of those tables. We're representing just about every table, but we start bringing lab orders or procedure orders in. We don't have field sources that look at lab orders or procedure orders. Being a field source, they need to be able to select from a lab order table looking for A1C lab order or LDL lab order. And then so maybe that, and then there's, I don't know if we got into that, but sometimes sometimes you want to pull, well, like, right, there's a fall risk screen. Sometimes data is going into, you want to pull the date that something happened, or sometimes you want to pull the value that was actually mapped, or like if a mammogram was positive, or not mammogram, but a diabetic eye exam was positive or negative. Let's say, I think they created a new value for that, but just to show you, from a single table procedure result table, let's say, there could be two different fields you want to return data off.
The more, I don't know how much of this you get, this business of basically writing, the more I'm listening to this seems to look like we should really go and invest in some BI, like Brio and all that, to kind of, you create your own queries, just doing the tables. But again, I don't think that the clinicals, they would have this, they still need to kind of link. One of the problems that we do have, that regardless of what, because our database, which says every CDR, our CDR is not normalized, it's not linked correctly and all that. So just a table is a table. There's no linkage to it, or there are very few linkage at all. For a highly linked database that has all of the things that it should have had, and I would say, you would say, okay, give me I want to see all of the patients, okay. All the patients that have CPT, well, okay, we can potentially, so CPTs are in the problem or is in encounter, right? So we give them those things. But we don't have linkage, we have just desperate bunch of tables that are sitting there that even if we put a system on top of it, it cannot figure out head from tail. I was thinking, because really creating these like that is going to require a lot of resources to create it the way that it is. That is given that we just change our database to be normalized, and everything is linked and foreign keys and primary keys and so on. Attempt that I have, like what he was showing, okay, so here I was picking up the patients, correct? So I want to find a female, correct? That's how we started. We said that. So at that point, say, okay, I want those patients, okay, potentially that patient can have, that's actually, that representation was kind of the tabular version, but okay, so we can have a click, you click on it, it starts with the patient. I want all the females. Okay, that's easy. I found the females who are alive, correct? There's certain things.
Yeah.
All of those fields that we picked up, I thought that those are the things that can potentially restrict the person. So here I got my person, correct? At that point, now we have to make a decision. Okay, what do we want to do? So we have problem, we have encounters.
Allergies, action.
Allergies,
kind of
action, correct.
Medications,
Past history,
problems,
correct.
past medical, past
Correct.
surgical.
Exactly, anything that deals with the ID person. Anything that has ID person. So all of those are candidates. So we can go, okay. So so we can potentially go with the person, and then at that point, anything that has an ID person to it can become a potential candidate. So then they say, okay, I want this, and I want to find, and say we create even a view between encounter and encounter with details, the ones that we don't know which one is which. So we give them encounter. Give me the encounters that have the encounters. That means that when they have it, that have that CPT. So we create all these things, but that is, we need to somehow move them to the steps, correct? Because if this is this, then it's going to do that. So I don't know. I mean, it really requires.
Well, let's get focused back on what we're trying to do here.
What is
So,
it that-
Number one, we're trying to get the process of managing the protocol engine where it's not solely on Rachel's shoulders. Get somebody else that knows how to do it, or give a better front end where Rachel can do it and can train others to do it more easily than Rachel does.
That's the
Because
whole idea that we're talking about.
Yeah, we started talking about that before you walked in. Is the
That's
front end.
exactly what we're talking about.
And so.
So basically, Brandy basically says, I don't, and Rachel believes that, it's highly laborious and it can error
It is,
causes and
yeah,
all that
yeah.
and all that, and she even has.
I make errors all the
we make
time.
errors
Yeah,
all
of
the
course,
time.
yeah, who wouldn't?
So
Yeah.
basically, so that's exactly the point. So how do we go about presenting it that anybody with the clinical knowledge, not necessarily knowing all the fields and all that within the CDR, kind of start clicking and finding and creating the steps, basically.
Or we leave it like it is and know there's gonna be a blunder here and there and have to pick it up on the back end after we run it. We keep doing what we're doing. It works.
The use case for that is what happens, the hit by a bus scenario for her.
And you
If
decide
she gets hit by a
she's
bus.
taking it.
Correct,
That's
yeah.
right.
It's you. And we're gonna send a bus for you.
I'll jump in front of the bus.
Exactly. Yep.
So Arthur was asking, okay, what was your proposed layout? I mean, we don't know. One option is something like a Visio flow chart, where you
Yeah.
just start from top to bottom and yes, no. But I don't know,
I don't think that IT can just do it alone. That's what I think. I mean, there is no way.
Well, we wanna see how far Alejandro gets with what he's got.
Well, he doesn't have.
Oh, so he's through?
Well, pretty much.
Okay.
What we know, I mean, that was just kind of like, it's just creating a list. It really doesn't have any traction
Well,
to
he's
the
just-
protocol engine.
Well, right now, he's just heard his first bit on what the front end looks like. Let's give him a chance to think about it. And come back with what he couldn't possibly have already gathered all this in and come back with a recommendation to you. Or maybe he can, I don't know. I couldn't. I'm the smartest man in the world, I would have failed.
Well, I'm the village idiot and I still cannot.
Okay, so we were just talking, that was just next on the
Yeah,
list,
yeah,
is
yeah.
the front end.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's see what Alejandro
Yeah, see
comes
what he
back
comes
with
up with,
after.
yeah. And we can take another slice at it. I just wanna make sure we got Rachel's 2 cents worth before she got away for a couple of weeks.
Is there anything else you can
I
think
mean,
about?
I'll just be gone for 3 days, but.
Oh, I thought it was 3 months, come on.
It keeps growing.
Go for 3 years.
It
We
feels like
actually
as though
married
you
her
have-
off to
I'm
somebody on
never
an
telling
island.
anyone again when I'm
The
leaving.
other-
Exactly.
The other thing that we have to have the capability of when we redesign this is that when she writes, let's just say if not much changes from the current existing, so we write a protocol, we have to have a way that Rachel can say, okay, Brandy, we just wrote this protocol for Humana, Medicare Advantage for HEDIS. We should be able to click 3 or 4 buttons that say, I want use case number 941, I want use case number 20. 24, I want use case number 111. And that use case runs against that protocol and tells us if the protocol's written correctly before we even put it into production. We have use cases that test out every scenario of throwing off an exclusion,
Well,
an
we already have,
exception.
Sure.
Right.
That goes without saying, we just.
But we don't do that today.
I know we
Not
don't.
even close.
Yeah. Yeah, but, yeah, I understand that.
You mean just throwing something together and putting it in production in the way to do it?
Well, we can potentially put on a development, but still.
We can do it that way.
Can?
We're very
We
good at
can.
that. It's our highest level skill. After 5, run it live, you know how it goes. Okay, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is there anything else you can think about complexities, or, I mean, kind of went through every table, there's not much more to say.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all just intertwined with each other.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so easy to just get one thing off, and
Yeah.
I all the time have to go hit Tristan and just, what am I missing? What am I not seeing?
Well, if
Well,
that,
how
or
last
missing a
week-
last, or missing a top one, or.
Yes.
Well, what was it, a week ago or 2 weeks ago?
It was 2 weeks ago.
With the ASAR, there was a semicolon.
Oh, yeah,
or
semicolon
something.
instead of a comma.
Comma.
It's probably been there for years.
A long time, yeah.
I'm like.
I can believe it.
And so, all of a sudden, now they're saying this protocol's not working, right? And we're like, what? And then it was something that simple. But that's a fat finger, you know what I mean?
No,
And-
it happens all the time.
And everything else is right, and we spend all this time reviewing stuff and adding all these new recommendations, and then something that simple just completely throws it off or it doesn't even work. Rachel, you know what time it is, right?
Yeah, I do.
Did you get my emails I sent you yesterday?
Okay. Unless
Okay.
y'all have
I
any
haven't looked
questions,
at
I
them.
think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alejandro, you have any questions?